Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Romali here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for September 14th, 2019, recorded around 4:46 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A quick look at Tropical Storm Humberto. Humberto is continuing to gradually organize as it pulls away from the Abaco Islands here and Freeport and the Grand Bahamian Islands. There's still an overall large area of vorticity and a large area of convection surrounding this. You can see this is where the center is, and there's a large, sort of band like this further to the east and southeast here of the center of circulation. Not a whole lot going on in this side of the storm. There is not a whole lot going on in this western side. And when we take a look at the 1 minute visible satellite here, you can see where the center is right here. There is still some dry air and shear that is still being imparted in the system, and you can clearly see that there's no significant convection on this side of the system here to really wrap in and fill into that void. But the convection is, or the center is becoming tucked in under this convection. There's still an exposed side of this convection, and there's no primitive eye wall, but it is becoming a little bit better tucked into this convection, this deeper convection. You can see some of the showers and storms that are radiating out here from Humberto over the Florida Peninsula here, but for the most part, this will not be a threat for the portions of the Florida Peninsula or the Florida East Coast or the southeast United States. We may have to watch Bermuda here over the next coming days just to see how close it gets to Bermuda. Speaking of Bermuda, you can see, we'll go to the 3-day cone first, and you can see that this expected slow motion is expected to continue here really for the next couple of days until Monday, where it starts to take that turn by Sunday afternoon. By tomorrow afternoon, it should start to make that benchmark turn towards the northeast. So that's kind of that benchmark to really see whether or not this actually takes that turn, and it should, as the ridge of high pressure up here to the north is starting to abate and weaken. That will shift towards the south and east, allowing there to be sort of this weakness with the trough of low pressure coming in and force it out to sea and away from the United States. Take on the full forecast here, though, you can see Bermuda definitely in that cone of uncertainty at the 5 o'clock advisory. So still something to kind of keep in mind here. We'll actually update that. And you can see that that's something to keep in mind here at the 5 o'clock advisory, of how close that does get to Bermuda over the next coming days. And again, we'll have to watch here for exactly how close, and well, actually not how close, but how far right does this make that turn? Where exactly does that make that turn? And when exactly does it? This is moving towards the north-northwest here at about 7 miles an hour and should continue on that path through about tomorrow afternoon before turning towards the northeast and then eventually out to sea. No significant threat to the United States besides some swells. If you live along the coast, South Carolina, Florida, North Carolina, even up through the northeast, there could be some radiating swells later in the week that will make it to these regions here, so something to kind of keep in mind. We are also just continuing to monitor. Some of the EPS guidance does suggest that this may go a little further west, eventually somewhere out here, so we're watching for our friends here in the northeast, but nothing at this point that would indicate a further west track. This is mainly going to be out to sea. Again, the only real tangible threat is to Bermuda. We do look at the recon flight, and the recon that was in there earlier did show that about 1,005 millibars continuing on that northwesterly track here, or actually north-northwest, excuse me, with actually a little bit of stronger winds here supporting about 50 miles an hour sustained winds, and that's what the National Hurricane Center has it at, 50 miles per hour. And you can see mainly some of these 45-knot wind barbs were found on the northern and northeastern quadrants of the storm. Again, not a really well-defined southern side. There's not a lot of wind on the southern side to speak of. It is a mainly dry, convective-less area. And until we can really see that convection and that center get more further into this deeper convection and center and this dry air to really stop coming in and abate, and all that shear to be abating. We'll take a look at the shear here now, and you can see that really until we get this complete anticyclone and shear to abate, this really won't be taking off that much. And as such, the only gradual strengthening is expected during the next couple of days. This is expected to be a hurricane by Monday, and by the time this gets closer to Bermuda, this could be a near Category 2 intensity on its way pretty much out to sea at this point, but it may be a pretty close brush to Bermuda and the island chain there. So again, something to kind of keep in mind there. But for the most part, this should be an out to sea sort of track, so we'll keep the trends on that. The 850 millibar vorticity, again, here's the tropical storm right here. That's Humberto. Again, it will be moving out like that over the next coming days. It will bring some squally weather to portions of Florida, and you can see, if we take a look at the visible satellite, there is some showers that are rotating in towards the west from, excuse me, from east to west, and you can see mainly that there is some showers right here. Some of these could produce some gusty winds, 30-40 miles per hour in some of these heavier squalls, especially in some of the rougher weather out here along the coast. That was a terrible drawing, but right here along the coast, you could see maybe 30-40 miles per hour in some squalls, but nothing that's not that people shouldn't be accustomed to. That's pretty much just a typical summertime thunderstorm. But again, we are continuing to monitor exactly when it makes that turn and how sharply it does and how strong it will be for our folks here in Bermuda. So a lot to watch here over the coming days. But for the most part, the biggest takeaway is that Humberto is no real threat, no tangible threat to the United States, East Coast, or the southeastern United States. So we continue to monitor again for our folks here in Bermuda and for our folks in Florida and across the southeastern states here. Just some swells, maybe some squally conditions at time, mainly for the Florida East Coast here in the Florida Peninsula. During the next day or so, while this continues to make its move off towards the northwest and eventually northeast here, turning out to sea. We will keep our eye on the sky per se for our friends in Bermuda. So for our friends there, just continue to monitor as anyone should. This is the peak of hurricane season. I am Michael Romali with the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion, and I will be back for you tomorrow.